We really had a vision about 10 years ago to say, there's no reason that a camera can't replace every motion detector in the world. And there's a motion detector in that corner, and there's a camera in that corner. And guess what? When the alarm goes off, the only thing the operator has access to today is likely that motion detector trip. What if they could see, right? What if they just take the motion detector down and let's use the camera as the detector? Maybe the best part of this is I can connect all of those customer cameras to a central station in less than 60 seconds.
Wow.
So we see dealers getting $350, $400 a month on those locations because you're not only protecting equipment, but you're protecting profitability of the client. You're protecting their operational reputation.
The solution that is not the best solution will be replaced with the best solution by someone. Either it's the current integrator or it's somebody else that's going to come and offer a better solution to your customer. Welcome to a special edition of Coffee Break with Jake, where we're going to be highlighting the CHeKT video platform. I'm excited to be joined today by David Erickson. David, tell our folks a little bit about yourself and just maybe a very quick overview on who CHeKT is.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. It's good to be here. The CHeKT platform is a video security-based platform where really our objective has been from the beginning to turn video into this security system for customers, right? So where traditional security is motion detectors and door contacts, we really had a vision about 10 years ago to say, there's no reason that a camera can't replace every motion detector in the world. And the truth is, if that's the case, then you can also bring detection outside the perimeter of a building and be more proactive and detect before crime happens. And so Wes Usay is the founder of the company and certainly created the vision of what we wanted. And then myself and another guy named Trevor, who's the founding CTO of the company, really built this from scratch. And so the three of us started the company. I've been managing the operations and the organization and really kind of leading innovation. Trevor's the engineer, and of course, Wes is the visionary of this whole thing.
Awesome. David, dealers are increasingly looking at video as more than a product sale, more than a one-time installation. They want to create recurring revenue, protect the customer relationship, and build a business that has long-term value. At the same time, though, they don't want to create a complicated IT operation or expose themselves to unnecessary cybersecurity and liability risks.
Sure.
In your experience, what has to be in place for a dealer to turn video monitoring into a scalable and valuable book of business?
Yeah, I would say that they need a platform that they can manage that deployment and those systems for customers centrally. From the advent of video monitoring, a lot of the deployments were, for an IT guy trying to connect a camera at a customer location to a monitoring center. Certainly a lot of labor, a lot of lift there. It's not scalable. It really depends upon probably the smartest guy in the company doing something in his mind that seems somewhat rudimentary, but nobody else can do it. And it's really difficult to manage. So when you have a platform that, like the CHeKT platform, where it's scalable from a cloud infrastructure standpoint, and the dealer, the integrator, has the control over where he points that system for monitoring, he's in control of his business. And he's also protecting his clients from cybersecurity risk, probably like no other platform in the industry. We really take that seriously. And I think the scalability is the most important piece, because at the end of the day, every company, every dealer is looking to build value into their business, right? And then so if they have all of their video deployments kind of are one-offs or difficult to manage, or they're all kind of maybe even held hostage by the single IT guy that knows what he's doing, it's really hard for him to demonstrate value to maybe somebody who is either looking to invest in his company or maybe he's looking to sell his book of business.
I think about, growing up, my dad owns an alarm company and I kind of grew up in that business. And I remember they had like Excel documents, spreadsheets that had all of the customers' information associated with camera systems. Alarm accounts were different, right? Alarm accounts, everything was in the software with the central station. All of that was kind of centrally managed. But I think back to the spreadsheet, right? And I think of, the fact that a technician might have to access that to go out and service somebody's account. What happens to the value of a video account when customers' credentials, camera access, and technical knowledge are scattered across different employees and different systems?
Well, I think first of all, you're putting your security company at risk, right? You're carrying some liability as a security provider, a professional security provider, doing something that's certainly not professional. You're certainly hoping to mitigate that, right? So companies will work really hard to minimize who has access to that data. But then at the end of the day, it's really hard to know who has access and how they're accessing it. And so if your technician leaves the company, there's really no way to say, has he now deleted that document that tells him where every camera is connected? There's no way to manage his access, right? And so it's certainly about the security company's business and their liability. But of course, the inverse should be presumed that they protect their clients, right? Are you exposing your customer to unnecessary risk when you're port forwarding or you're sharing camera credentials?
So how does CHeKT, from a standardization perspective, how does CHeKT help create a standardized service for management across hundreds or thousands of video accounts?
Yeah, it really starts with our cloud infrastructure, where every employee and all access through that cloud infrastructure, of course, is access controlled and logged. And then it, of course, goes down to what we call our video control panel that's on site, and building that really mimicked what an alarm panel does. And as I said at the beginning, if we could take every camera in the world and treat it like a motion detector, and then communicate that into infrastructure of all of the alarm monitoring centers, we would build something. But that appliance that sits at that local area network for your customers, what it's also doing is becoming the tunnel and the gateway for security. Nobody can access that system without going through your cloud infrastructure. All of the transmission, all of the video, all of the data is encrypted. And so what you're doing is with a single device is you're simplifying onboarding to monitoring center for monitoring services, but you're also protecting your clients from those cybersecurity risks, or you're ensuring that all access to the platform is coming through one cloud infrastructure that as a dealer, you can manage, right? You can delete, you can add, you can set permission levels, and you can always know who's accessing your customers' information.
It's interesting that you talk about creating a more similar experience to an alarm system with a camera system in terms of installation and management. But I think about the monitoring piece here, and I think about over the years dealers telling me how much frustration they might have with one particular central station versus another.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard stories of dealers just being so frustrated with a particular central station where they said, hey, I've got to move my alarm accounts from one central station to another. Now I feel like it's gotten to be more relevant, kind of the portability of these accounts, because as all the central stations are investing in capabilities and processes, and even standardizing pricing models that make sense for video monitoring. Talk to me about kind of the portability of these accounts. So as opposed to, again, I think of kind of older style integration with central stations. It was very kind of labor intense, technically intense. You're having to port things. You're having to send stuff to a specific IP address. Like, I can't imagine having a bunch of accounts that are video monitored and all of that very technical stuff done. And then all of a sudden you realize, hey, I really don't like this central station. I need to go someplace else. Or, hey, my clients need something very specific that's available somewhere else. Talk to me about how CHeKT kind of streamlines the portability of accounts, maybe more similar to what a dealer might experience with like a cellular platform with traditional alarm systems, and how much easier it got to move accounts from one place to another if needed.
Yeah, no, I mean, that cloud infrastructure allows me to take a client who might be monitored at central station A and then with an account number change and really a quick change that takes less than 10 minutes, point them to central station B. I can connect cameras and I can connect NVRs anywhere in the world. That's not a technical hurdle.
Sure.
But what's the labor cost? What's the risk involved? And then how quickly can I modify something if I need to? Do I need to roll a truck? How quickly can I, add services to the client? What if the client stops paying? How quickly can I disable services? So when you think of scaling video monitoring, doing it that old school way just isn't reasonable anymore. And you're certainly eating into your profit margins when you have to send your best guy out there. You're spending hours just to tweak one camera, tweak one account.
Yeah, I think we kind of talk about the simplicity of connecting the systems to the central station. We talk about the simplicity of moving that connection from one central station to another if we needed to, either change of service provider or a sale of the business or whatever the case might be. But then I think about the connection itself. And, I think about the tech support that I used to do related to camera systems.
Sure.
To where, folks would try to connect to the camera system and realize that they couldn't because what happened? A router got reset. They changed. Yeah. I mean, just a nightmare, right? And how often do you hear those scenarios where when somebody needed to access it, to see it, to pull up recording, that they couldn't do it remotely, right? And that there was some issue with the camera system. Of course, when whatever adverse event occurred, it wasn't operating properly. Talk to me about the benefits of CHeKT's platform as it relates to ensuring reliable and supervised connections with these systems.
So from the edge, and when I say the edge, I'm talking about the camera to the center, the whole communication is supervised. So if there's an interruption at any time, at any point, we're going to notify the monitoring center and we're going to notify the dealer down to a minute. Now, the dealer can control how quickly or how often they want that supervision, but down to a 60-second interval, that dealer can get notified if there's any trouble condition. And we're supervising the video streams of the camera. We're supervising the IP or the ISP connectivity of the location. We're supervising the metadata of the camera. So when the camera's analytics fail, we're going to supervise that. So now think about your camera as the motion detector replacement. If your camera is the motion detector, then as a security company, you want to know that that camera is working as a detector. And if it's detecting, it's communicating. And if it's communicating, the monitoring center has access. All of this matters when you're selling video. And we see that when dealers are scaling with CHeKT, we see all of those things as value, right? The dealers that are doing very well are scaling this across thousands of accounts with thousands of cameras because they can do this and manage this centrally, and they have the supervision details that they know when a system does need to be serviced. I have several national integrators, Jake, that use CHeKT, and those national integrators don't even visit that from an install standpoint. What they'll do is pre-configure the kit, they'll box it out, and they'll give it to a sub. All the sub's doing is the manual labor, right? He's plugging that system in, he's plugging the IP cameras in, he's line of sighting all of the cameras, and the CHeKT video control panel, which most people know as our bridge, is plugged into the network, and then everything else is configured remotely from the national integrator perspective. That sub doesn't have any access to the system, no technical details have been shared, and all of that then is remotely managed.
And so, that's something that it's kind of mind-blowing, right? Because generally speaking, we think about having to have an IT person to actually do those types of things, not just remotely with pre-configuration, but having somebody on site to, a lot of times to talk to the IT guy there, the customer's IT guy, right? To get
which can take days at times. Like in many cases, it was my uncle who set up the router, and I don't know the password, and let me see if I can reach him. And then you send a technician out there, and then he's sitting in his truck waiting on that. All of that costs money. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but of course, this is what we live and kind of help dealers overcome, because we'll hear these stories from dealers, right? Like, I sent a guy out there and he sat in the truck all day waiting on somebody to get the router set up so I could port forward cameras. So of course we want to protect the liability of clients. We certainly want to help dealers build this business that they're absorbing liability from a cybersecurity, but it's about profitability as well. Like, and if a dealer understands that I can spend a few $100 on a video control panel, what cost am I saving over the life of that account? It's certainly going to be more than a couple $100.
Yeah, I think about the your example of a technician just waiting there, right?
Yeah.
And then I think about the biggest complaint that I hear from our integrators is that they don't have enough technicians, right? And when you have a shortage of technicians, and then you have technicians tied up on jobs where they're waiting for an IT guy to do what needs to get done, it's just kind of like a compounding issue.
Right.
You talk about profitability and we talk about visibility and the costs. What we found is that sometimes dealers are selling video monitoring service without fully understanding what it actually costs to deliver them. How does CHeKT give integrators better visibility and control into kind of their costs and profitability associated with those jobs?
Yeah, sure. Well, they certainly can kind of begin to count the labor hours that it will cost to install the next system, right? Because it really does become more of a turnkey system and a turnkey model. Now I'm giving a technician 5 cameras in the CHeKT video control panel, but I'm saying, hey, go out there. You know how to run Cat5. You know to plug in a PoE switch. Go ahead and get these cameras lined up, build the line of sight that you need, and then we'll do everything else remotely from our support center. That cost now can be calculated, and then you can build that rinse and repeat model. And then you can also know from the supervision standpoint, of course, the remote configuration capabilities, that I minimize my truck rolls, right? So now I'm not deploying a technician just to change camera analytics or change something for a customer access. I can do all that remotely. And then from a central station standpoint, Jake, maybe the best part of this is I can connect all of those customer cameras to a central station in less than 60 seconds.
Wow.
Doesn't matter if there's 3 or 4 cameras, there could be sites and we have them deployed with 30 and 40 cameras. In about a 60-second, give me an account number, what receiver am I connecting this to? I have connectivity into the monitoring center. And I would say that is a huge piece to saying, hey, how can my sales team now sell with confidence? Because what we've seen in the past is when sales guys sell something and then that thing gets totally bogged down from a tech standpoint and deployment standpoint, and the customer's frustrated, sales guys are like, man, I'm not ever selling that thing again. Or if I sell it again, I got to bump the price way up. So all of this erodes confidence for kind of the whole chain of people. So we're, certainly wanting that centralized management helps create confidence, and then the known costs about how much a system is going to cost me.
I always say that as a distributor, our biggest challenge sometimes selling tech into projects through our integrators for remote video monitoring. It's not the hardware. We can quote it. It's not the capabilities of that hardware. We can explain that.
Sure.
It's oftentimes the cost, or not even the cost, but the ambiguity about the cost of those services through the central stations. And one of the things that I've found with CHeKT is, aside from standardizing the process and the connectivity and the management, you guys have done a really great job lobbying the central stations to standardize pricing so that management and sales folks actually, have an idea of what it's going to cost and can, again, confidently propose something without any, oh my goodness, I didn't know that was going to be the cost.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another value add, I shouldn't say one of the value adds, another value add is our ability to communicate into any monitoring center, Jake, where before CHeKT, you had to really find who does video monitoring. Well, with our communication logic, any alarm monitoring center can monitor the CHeKT platform. We're communicating with the same alarm protocols. It's all just video centric. We work with thousands of various camera brands. To us, the camera is just the motion detector, right? So whether it be UniView, Hanwha, Access, even down to the Hike Vision and the Dahua, Bosch, we support them all. They're just a detector for us, and they come into our platform, and then we communicate with all of the monitoring centers. When the monitoring centers began to digest our data, what they really began to see is, wow, this is just communicating like an alarm system. And so when you start deploying CHeKT on a commercial account, let's just say it's an interior commercial system, an SMB, a jewelry shop, a pawn shop, maybe high risk retail, electronic shop, even banks, you can communicate the value of video monitoring to the client, and they'll certainly appreciate that. And then you can go to a center and say, these are just visual motion detectors inside. And a lot of our centers, and certainly we can work on this information afterwards, have agreed on a fixed site pricing for interior commercial. And maybe most importantly is the exterior secure commercial, Jake, where if I'm protecting a plumbing contractor, if I'm protecting trucks outside or equipment outside, inventory outside, that fixed site pricing might be a little bit higher, but those monitoring centers will work with the integrators and say, hey, at this price, this is what we'll do exterior secure monitoring for. Now, keep in mind, it's the secure part of the equipment yard.
Sure.
Everybody kind of has the statistics now to say, hey, we'll do it for this price. And now the salesperson can just go out there and begin to swing and start selling. And so commercial interior and the commercial exterior secure are two areas that we worked with our key stations to give dealers fixed pricing.
Well, and I think that aside from, we've talked about controlling costs and we've talked about making this a scalable solution that's rinse and repeat. But we haven't talked about the revenue opportunity yet. And I think this is what's really piqued most dealers' interest in this business.
Yeah.
What kind of recurring monthly revenue opportunity can dealers realistically create with remote video monitoring through CHeKT?
I mean, it always comes down to what kind of pain you're solving for a client, right? And where their ceiling is of the value of the service. In those interior secure systems like the SMB or the banks, the high risk retail, what we see dealers getting is somewhere between $80 and $100 or $120 a month. Now that's taking a traditional alarm system where the ceiling's about 50, and then now it's adding another $50 a month for a better level of service to a client. Certainly, I've reduced the false alarm fees to a client, and I'm getting a better police response. I'm not dispatching on employee error and things of that nature, and I'm giving the central station the ability to provide a higher level of service.
We talk about higher revenue, but the opposite end of that equation is higher value to your customer.
That's
right? You're able to generate higher recurring revenue. Because as you mentioned, now we're reducing false alarms.
Well, the security industry is struggling with attrition on alarm systems.
Yeah.
There's a high rate of false alarm. These large national accounts are paying these enormous false alarm fees to ordinances across the country. And so the question to the client and those large clients across the country are, what is the value of my alarm system? They want security, they need security, but if it's not giving them what they're, really hoping and paying for, there's a risk of attrition. And what this does is it changes that. Now you can say, hey, we've got a better form of a security system, right? We're still really building an alarm system, but what we're doing is replacing that motion detector with a camera. Can't say how many times do you walk into a pawn shop, a jewelry shop, and there's a motion detector in that corner and there's a camera in that corner. And guess what? When the alarm goes off, the only thing the operator has access to today is likely that motion detector trip. What if they could see, right? What if they just take the motion detector down and let's use the camera as the detector? I think the real value, though, is when you move outside in those exterior secure locations, because you're really solving a much bigger problem for clients. That asset protection, the equipment protection, you can certainly get much higher margins in revenue. The exterior secure, where we see dealers getting $350, $400 a month on those locations, because you're not only protecting equipment, but you're protecting profitability of the client. You're protecting their operational reputation. Think about your collisions and your body shops. When catalytic converters get stolen or those cars get damaged or broken into, it's not their car. It's not the collision center's car. It's their customer's car. So the reputation of their business, the deductibles, the insurance costs. So you're actually bringing some significant value in those exterior secure locations. You have a fixed secure property, so you know your statistical average on cost. You know your monitoring centers are agreed to a fixed price. The value to that client is very high. Now they know when their technicians roll up in the morning and they're a plumbing contractor, all the tools, all the trucks are ready to go, and they can go do their job. When they show up in the morning and catalytic converters are gone or tools are stolen, it's not about the tools at that point, right? It's the loss of reputation and their own operational revenue.
I think that the video monitoring opportunity is it's very exciting. I think that it's as you described the scenario where the motion detector is not the best solution. I think that really reinforces the fact that the solution that is not the best solution will be replaced with the best solution by someone. Right. Either it's the current integrator or it's somebody else that's going to come and offer a better solution to your customer. David, I want just some key takeaways here for the folks listening. I want to point out, CHeKT helps dealers build a standardized book of recurring revenue. Dealers maintain control over customer accounts and access permissions and relationships. That means that employees do not need to share customer credentials, and access can be managed and revoked when technicians leave the company. As you mentioned, connections are secure, they're reliable, and they're supervised. Yeah. And the cloud platform removes the need for complex on-site IT infrastructure. Most importantly, that means that your business doesn't depend on one internal IP or IT employee. Yeah. David, I'm so excited about what you're doing with the monitoring centers and streamlining the experience for efficient alarm handling and how that's really made this a scalable solution from a cost perspective. And I'm excited about the revenue opportunity for our dealers. And so, David, I do have one final question for you today. Okay. For a dealer that already has hundreds of camera system customers, sure, but has not built recurring revenue around them, where would you recommend they begin?
I would begin with maybe your customer that you have the best relationship with, right? Talk to them, say, hey, we're going to deploy this new system. Really want to use it in a location where I have a trusted relationship. Deploy it with them. Talk to your client about it. We've spent a lot of time talking about our dealer management experience, but our customer experience is first class. Let your customer experience this platform. See what they feel. We also spend a lot of time with monitoring centers. I know that there's, we see the Facebook posts and we see people complaining about their monitoring center. It almost feels like it's like people complaining about their wife. They love their wife, but yet they're just complaining about her. We work really hard with these monitoring centers. And I will tell you this, Jake, the monitoring centers are working very hard to operationalize video monitoring and provide the best service. Don't abandon your monitoring center over one mistake, because you're just going to move to the next one and there could be a mistake. Work with your center, but work with your best customer. Let us help you build the relationships that you see opportunities. We have a lot of sales enablement tools as well, Jake. What we've done in the past 6 months is say statistically what customer verticals are most likely to purchase video monitoring services. We have the statistics that say in these markets, this type of account is likely to buy video monitoring because of the value. Let us help you as a dealer kind of identify those in your market. But I would say start with your trusted customers first. Let it prove itself. Let us help it prove you. We certainly don't want any dealer to buy CHeKT and feel like they're kind of getting pushed in kind of in a certain direction and manipulated. That has never been our objective. Our objective is to allow the technology and the platform to prove itself. We'll certainly work with dealers to show that that's the case. And I think that it'll say, this is the system that I want to use.
Awesome. Well, David, I want to thank you so much for being here. There's so many exciting features and capabilities of CHeKT that we didn't get into today. But what I'd like to invite anyone listening to this to do would be to connect with your SS&Si account manager, or feel free to reach out directly to me. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to talk to you about what CHeKT can do for your business and for your customers. And we'd like to give you a demo discount as well on your first bridge. So again, David, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for being such a great partner to SS&Si and to our mutual viewers.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate your time.